Well, the Fed's busting what they call a massive and brazen drug ring that involves fraternities at several major universities in North Carolina. Prosecutors announcing the arrest of nearly 24 current and former students at UNC Chapel Hill, Duke, and Appalachian State after a 2-year investigation.
This is not a situation where you have single users, where you have a 19-year-old sipping a beer, where you have someone taking a puff of a joint on the back porch of a frat house. These are 21 hardened drug dealers.
Derek Maltz is a former special agent in charge of the DEA Special Operations Division and joins us now. You just heard the U.S. Attorney, Mr. Martin, call them hardened drug dealers. I mean, you don't usually hear that about college students, but, you know, were they allegedly that, you know, in terms of the amount that they are accused of dealing?
Eric, the DEA and the Orange County Sheriff's Office in North Carolina are paid to protect the public and to save lives. That's exactly what they did this past week in this investigation, which is going on 2 years. They shut down a pipeline from the Mexican cartels in California into North Carolina, supplying poisonous drugs to college, university kids and the public in the surrounding areas of North Carolina. We have to understand that right now we're in the worst drug crisis in the history of the country. The reports coming out this week from the CDC have reported 81,000 Americans died in the calendar year in the last 12 months through May of 2020. That's 221 people a day dying from drugs. So yes, I applaud the efforts of the DEA, but what's really special, Eric, about this case is the state and local police did exactly what they're supposed to do. They reached out to the DEA. There's a very experienced leader in North Carolina, in Raleigh, North Carolina, who has years of experience of taking cases from the streets right to the highest levels of the cartels. So I think they did a spectacular job, and they saved a lot of lives.
Yeah, and you were talking about it going from, I mean, it's unbelievable. Yes, this is how it works. Here's what Mr. Martin, the U.S. Attorney, said about how sophisticated this whole operation allegedly was.
Very sophisticated methods. We're talking about using encrypted apps and other apps on telephones, using electronic payment applications such as Venmo and PayPal, talking about using financial institutions to launder drug proceeds.
I mean, the suspects, the people arrested, students, former students, 21 years old to 27 years old, and they were using fraternities, according to the charge. What is your sense of a massive operation allegedly being run through and in frats?
Well, first of all, Eric, we're talking about 200 kilograms of cocaine, thousands of pounds of marijuana, LSD, mushrooms, Xanax, all types of drugs coming from the West Coast in the mail, in the postal systems, in cars. They were using Venmo, PayPal, millions of dollars going back to the drug suppliers out there in California. But the most important part of the story is America has to recognize that we have unprecedented levels of death. They're putting poison, they're putting fentanyl, they're putting other substances in these drugs that are being distributed to these college kids, and parents are getting calls in the middle of the night that their kids are dying. So we have a very serious situation, and people don't realize the lethal partnership that the Chinese have formed with the Mexican cartels. China right now is involved in all aspects of the drug crisis in America. They have weaponized America's addiction on drugs, and under the disguise of drug addiction, they're attacking our country. So we have a very serious issue, but this is exactly what law enforcement is paid to do, and I applaud their effort. This is not a mom-and-pop operation. It's a bunch of greedy college kids who are trying to use the fraternities as a safe haven. Unfortunately, the DEA and the local police were very, very talented, and they did a great job shutting it down. And they will continue to save lives in this effort, in these type of efforts.
Yeah, and allegations where they're dealing with their friends, and as you said, trying to use the frat as a cover. You know, just
Eric,
absolutely shocking.
Eric, one of the things real quick is that the cartels are going to use the most sophisticated technology. They're using encrypted apps. America has antiquated laws. Law enforcement does not have the abilities to infiltrate the communications pursuant to court orders like they once had with telephones. So these young, smart kids are going to utilize all the technology to beat the system. And the cartels are very, very well schooled and trained, and they don't want to be extradited and come to America to face, judicial process here. So they're going to use all the technology available to them.
Wow. Hats off to the law enforcement officials, the DEA local officials in North Carolina, former DEA Special Agent Derek Maltz. Thank you for joining us. It is quite an issue, of course.